My 7-year-old broke a kid's jaw and the surgeon asked for her autograph. We were sitting in a client meeting when my phone buzzed for a third time in 2 minutes. The first call was from awkward elementary. The second was from someone identifying themselves as officer called all with my country please. The third was a next text from the school principal that just said, please come immediately, situation urgent. My hands went cold as I excused myself from the conference room, my mind racing through every possible scenario. Dr. Lily was 7 years old, quiet, the kind of kid who brought home injured birds and cried during said commercials. Whatever situation was urgent enough for the police to be involved could not possibly be what I imagined. The drive to the schools took 12 minutes that felt like hours, and when I pulled into the parking lot, I saw two squad cars parked near the entrance. And the lights off, but their presence unmistakable. My stomach dropped as I walked through the front doors, trying to control my breathing and failing completely. And the receptionist's face told me everything before she even spoke. That practice looked for professional concern is something that might have been pity or judgment. He directed me to the principal's office without making eye contact, and I could hear right voices echoing down the hallway. Before I even reached the door, Principal Dacre stood when I entered. Her expression grave as she gestured to a chair, but I remained standing because sitting felt like accepting whatever nightmare was about to unfold. Across from her desk sat a couple I recognized vaguely from school events. The Ashfords, both wearing expensive suits that screamed loyal even before they introduced themselves. Their son Damien sat between them with an ice pack pressed to his face, and I could see the swelling even from where I stood near the doorway. Mrs. Ashford spoke fast, her voice sharp and controlled in that way people sound when they are containing weak behind professional courtesy. She informed me that my daughter had violently assaulted their son on school property, causing severe injuries that would require surgery and potentially permanent damage. Mr. Ashford added that they were both attorneys and would be facing criminal charges for assault along with a civil suit for damage they estimated at $5,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine blade, and I felt my knees actually weaken before I forced myself to stay upright and focused. Where was Lily? I asked, my voice coming out straighter than I felt. Principal delicately explained that she was in the nurse's office being evaluated, and that was when Officer Caldwell stepped forward from here, where he would be standing by the window. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind face of someone who probably hated this part of his job. He told me that based on the severity of the injuries and witness statements, he would need to take Lily to the station for processing, and my heart actually stopped beating for a second. Processing fingerprints and photograph and my 7-year-old daughter being treated like a criminal. I could not reconcile that image with the child who still asked me to check for monsters under her bed. The Ashfords started taking over each other then, describing that attack as vicious and unprovoked, explaining how their son had been mending his own business when Lily had apparently lost control and struck him hard enough to break his jaw in 3 places. Me a photo of Damien's face from what must have been right after the incident. The swelling he already severed, his jaw visibly looking at it, but something did not add up. Because Lily waited maybe 50 albeit shocking weight and had never shown any sign of aggression in her entire life. I asked him if I could see my daughter first before we discussed anything else, and Principal Dacre nodded, leading me down the hallway to the nurse's office while Officer Caldwell flowed at a respectful distance. The Ashford stayed behind, but I could feel their eyes burrowing into my back while they calculating their legal strategy. In counting this settlement money, the man's office smelled like antiseptic and old benches, and Lily sat on the examination table with her legs bending off the edge, too short to reach the floor. Her right hand was wrapped in improvised ice pack made from a plastic bag and paper towels. And when she looked up at me, I saw something in her eyes I would never seen before. Not fear or guilt, but a kind of fierce satisfaction that made her clock older than her 7 years. Like she'd crossed some invisible line and knew there was no going back. Her knuckles were split and swollen. Blood tried to edges of her small fingers, and I realized with growing hurt that she would hit Demonian hard enough to injure herself. In the process, the school nurse, Mrs. Qley, pulled me aside and whispered that Lily had refused to explain what happened. Just keep asking for the Tommy was okay. I had no idea who Tommy was or why Lily would be more concerned about some of the child than in that. In fact, that idea who Tommy was really who lead with bed. Anjured hand, asking her as calmly as I could, manage to tell me what happened. And she looked at me with those eyes that were suddenly too old and said 4 words and changed everything. Demon's heart Tommy. Dead my 4 years old son Tommy had become several developments delays. The result of complications. Children during access defending him against my perceived sight and coincidence. My son was on the ground cycling, crying, and Damon was holding his phone up, filming up with Tommy. Whenever he tried to stand up, Lily said she told me that them to stop, but Damon had just laughed and said something about getting views on TikTok for the crying. And felt rage flashed through me so intense I had to grip the examination table to stay grounded. She described how she would try to help Tommy up, but Damon had pushed her away but told her to mind her business. Then deliberately kissed and dart in Tommy's face while still fuming. That was when Lily had apparently grabbed Damon's phone out of his hand and demanded he delete the video. And Damon had responded by shoving her and her enough that she felt backward in the fence. According to Lily, he would leaned down and told her that video was going up tonight and everyone would see that a freak her brother was, and maybe next time they would get him to do something even funnier. She would get up, handed him back his phone, and when he turned away laughing, she would pounced him as hard as she possibly could at in the jaw. My 7-year-old daughter had apparently hit her enough to drop an 11-year-old boy like a stone. The nurse office door opened and officer crowd all stepped in. His expression apologetic as he complained that we need to take Lily to the situation station now, and I found myself saying wait, asking if they would check Damon's phone for the video. Lily mentioned the officer looked and confused. Said no one had mentioned any video and asked explain what Lily. He just told me while he took the notes with increasing interest. Principal Lailaka appeared in the doorway, then asking what the hold up was, and I repeated Lily's story while she listened with growing concern. She admitted they would only talk to Damien and his friends, who all claimed Lily had attacked unprovoked. No one had thought to check on Tommy or look for video evidence. We walked back to the principal's office in a small pride, and I noticed for the first time how Lily was holding Hinjud head carefully against her chest, her fingers swollen and twice their normal size. And Ashford looked up expectantly when we entered, and Mrs. Ashford immediately demanded to know why there was a delay in processing an assault charge. I looked at them both and asked as calmly as I could if they would seen what their son had been doing before. Tasteful officer Carlyle cleared his throat and asked if they would object to him reviewing the contents of Damon's phone. And the temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Mrs. Ashford started to say something about privacy and warrants, but her husband put a hand on her arm and asked what this was about. Mr. Ashford looked at his son with the new suspicion and asked in a measured tone if there was something on his phone he needed to know about, and Damon's eyes darkened between this Between his parents and like to like a trapped animal looking for escape, the silence stretched out for what felt like a forever before me. She thought about it seriously before shaking her head and saying she wished she would been able to stop Damien without hurting him. But given the choice again, she'd make the same decision to protect Tommy. That kind of mass certainty was both inspiring and terrifying in a child. And me would spend the rest of her childhood trying to help her channel that protective instinct into something constructive rather than destructive. We drove past awkward elementary on the way home and saw Tommy's class outside for recesses, supervised by the three teachers instead of the usual one. The new safely protocols already in effect. That evening, officer called to let us know what Damon's case had been proceeded through a juvenile court. He had been sentenced to a year of court supervised therapy and probation along with community service at a special needs facility, where he would learn to understand that population he would victimized. The judge had apparently been particularly harsh after viewing the video evidence, calling Dan's behavior a calculated act of Qley that unwanted serious. Invention Officer Caldwell also mentioned that two other families had come forward with complaints about Devon bullying and their special. Alicia's protection had given him confidence that someone would always keep him safe. Dashford kept their promise about his therapy funding, and Tommy started seeing a specialist who helped him process the trauma and develop coping strategy of anxiety. My wife and I watched our children navigate the aftermath of violence with surprising resilience, and we learned that sometimes protecting family meant making impossible choices that can't be neatly categorized as right or wrong. He never begged about what she would done to trade it. The red ate for special stress at his she just quietly went about being the same gentle kid who collected injured butterflies. Except now, softens and when Dr. Hart got right because her during one of the mentioned sessions here why she would choose to hit Damon instead of apply that sometimes. You just have to build the adult yourself. He would written that quite down in his notebook. And later told me it was the most mature thing he would ever had more at 7 years old. Years later, when Lily was filling out college applications and witness writing essays about formative experiences, she would tell the story of the day she broke boys jail and then Sergeant asked for her autograph. She would written about the line that protecting others, something we could balance, but that understanding balance was the foundation for preventing it. She would describe Dr. Cotrai's mentorship and how it had shaped her decision to pursue trauma surgery, specializing in predicted cases where she could help kids who could not help themselves. She would include a photocopy of the signed X-ray he would given her. The physical reminder that sometimes the worst moments of our lives point us toward our true purpose. I keep my own copy of that X-ray in my office desk answer, pulling it out. Actually, when I needed to remember that my daughter was stronger and braver than I would give her credit for, and that sometimes the most important thing a parent can do this: step back and let their kids be the heroes in their own stories, even when it reveals us to watch them fight their battles. The surgeon had asked for the autograph because he organized something in that violent act for protection. A precision and purpose that transcend and the simple levels of night and wrong. And in doing so, he would give Lily permission to own her strength instead of being ashamed of it. That gave more than anything else was what helped her heal from the trauma of that day and transform it into something that would let her spend her life healing others. Especially watching this if you enjoyed, drop a like, leave a comment and subscribe so you don't miss the next.